Al Capone, one of America's most notorious gangsters, did not meet his end in a spray of gunfire as many would anticipate for a figure of his prominence, but rather from complications of syphilis he had contracted years earlier. While imprisoned at Alcatraz, where he served a large portion of his 11-year sentence for tax evasion, his health started to decline substantially. His physical and mental condition had worsened severely by the time of his release in November of 1939. At his Palm Island, Florida estate, he lived his last years in relative isolation, mostly under the care of his family. Capone experienced a stroke on January 21, 1947. Although he seemed to be getting better, he then developed pneumonia. He passed away in his sleep from cardiac arrest 4 days later, on January 25, 1947. In Chicago, Illinois, he was first interred at Mount Olivet Cemetery. His remains, however, were relocated in 1947 to Mount Carmel Cemetery in Hillside, Illinois, along with those of his father and brother. A relatively humble headstone inside the Capone family plot marks his grave, a final resting place quite different from the violent public image that defined much of his life. On December 2, 1993, the infamous Colombian drug Lord Pablo Escobar was killed in a spectacular shootout on a rooftop in Medellin, Colombia. Escobar had been a fugitive for the 16 months prior to his death, dodging the allied forces of the Colombian National Police, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and a vigilante organization called Los Pepes. Authorities successfully used triangulation on a phone call he placed to his son on the day he died, identifying his whereabouts in a middle-class area. Escobar and his bodyguard tried to flee across the rooftops when the police stormed the house. Escobar was shot numerous times during the subsequent pursuit and gunfight. According to the official account, a shot to the ear killed him, although there has been persistent speculation that he might have taken his own life to prevent being captured, a story his family strongly refutes. Escobar's body was transported to a nearby hospital where his death was officially verified. Tens of thousands of people attended his funeral, a sign of the intricate and contradictory feelings he inspired in Colombia. He is laid to rest in the Monte Sacro Cemetery in Itagüí, a Medellin suburb. His burial place, marked by a plain slab, continues to be a destination for some pilgrim. John Gotti, the extravagant leader of the Gambino crime family, known as the Dapper Don and later the Teflon Don for his long-standing ability to avoid conviction, passed away from throat cancer on June 10, 2002, while imprisoned at the U.S. Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri. Gotti was diagnosed with cancer in 1998, and the illness advanced relentlessly despite surgery and radiation therapy. In the years before he died, his health declined markedly, and he spent his last months in the prison hospital. He was serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole after being found guilty in 1992 of 5 murders: conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, obstruction of justice, illegal gambling, extortion, and tax evasion. His death in prison represented a conclusive end to his control. Gotti's body was sent back to New York after his death. His funeral was a major event, drawing a large gathering of mourners and the press. He was interred at St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village, Queens, New York, within the family mausoleum near other notable crime figures, a last testament to his lasting, though contentious, legacy. Griselda Blanco, known as the Godmother or the Black Widow of the Medellin cartel, was murdered on September 3, 2012, in Medellin, Colombia. After serving almost 2 decades in prison for drug trafficking and numerous murder convictions, Blanco was deported from the United States to Colombia in 2004. Her past eventually overtook her, despite her release and seeming retirement from the drug business. Blanco was exiting a butcher shop in Medellin's Belén neighborhood with her pregnant daughter-in-law on the day she died. 2 assassins on motorcycles rode up next to her. One of them got off and shot her twice in the head, a terrifying parallel to the very assassination technique she was credited with inventing, the drive-by motorcycle shooting. At the time of her death, she was 69 years old. This brutal and public murder highlighted the ongoing cycle of violence linked to the drug world, even for those who appeared to have left it. Blanco's funeral took place in Medellin, and she was buried in the same city, although the specific location of her grave is not widely known to keep it from turning into a macabre tourist spot or a target. Charles "Lucky" Luciano, who is widely regarded as the creator of modern organized crime in the United States, passed away from a heart attack at Naples International Airport in Italy on January 26, 1962. Since 1946, Luciano had been living in exile in Italy, having been deported from the United States after completing a portion of a 50-year sentence for compulsory prostitution. He is said to have kept his power over the American mafia from overseas despite his deportation. Luciano was at the airport on the day of his death to see an American film producer who was keen on making a movie about his life. He fell as he got closer to the producer. He was taken quickly to a local hospital, but he was declared dead when he arrived. His death, while unexpected, was from natural causes, a sharp contrast to the violent deaths of many of his peers. His body was first kept in Naples after he died. His remains were eventually permitted to be returned to the United States after a lengthy negotiation process. He was laid to rest in the family mausoleum at St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village, Queens, New York, a final return for the man who molded the American criminal underworld. James Whitey Bulger, the infamous Irish-American mob boss who led the Winter Hill Gang in Boston and was a long-term FBI informant, was brutally killed on October 30, 2018, at the Hazleton Federal Prison in Brewston Mills, West Virginia. Bulger, who was 89 years old, had just been moved to the high-security prison the day before. He was discovered beaten to death in his cell just hours after he arrived, his eyes nearly gouged out. Prison officials thought that inmates with ties to the mafia or other organized crime groups whom Bulger had double-crossed during his time as an informant were to blame for his death. In the criminal underworld, his status as a rat was a major betrayal, and it was generally thought that he would be a target. Before being captured in 2011, Bulger had been a fugitive for 16 years, appearing on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list. He was later found guilty of 11 murders and many other crimes. His violent death in prison was a grim end to a life full of violence, betrayal, and a desperate attempt to escape justice. Bulger was laid to rest at St. Joseph's Cemetery in West Roxbury, Massachusetts, in a private ceremony. Frank Costello, often called the Prime Minister of the Underworld because of his political ties and diplomatic way of handling crime, passed away from a heart attack on February 18, 1973, at the age of 82. Costello was able to avoid a dramatic, bloody end, unlike many of his violent contemporaries. After surviving an assassination attempt in 1957 that was ordered by Vito Genovese, he had mostly stepped back from direct involvement in organized crime. Costello was shot in the head during that attempt, but he only sustained a minor injury. After the event, he famously declared, "I'm retiring, I've had enough." He then led a more peaceful life, though he was still seen as a respected figure in the criminal underworld. For his age, he was in relatively good health in his later years, and his death was from natural causes, a rare privilege for a mob boss. Costello was laid to rest in a large mausoleum at St. Michael's Cemetery in East Elmhurst, Queens, New York. His final resting place is proof of his long life and his capacity to navigate the perilous world of organized crime without falling victim to its usual violent outcomes. Salvatore Totò Riina, the brutal head of the Sicilian mafia, known as the Boss of Bosses, passed away from natural causes on November 17, 2017, in a prison hospital in Parma, Italy. Riina had been imprisoned since his capture in 1993, serving numerous life sentences for a variety of murders and bombings, including the assassinations of anti-mafia judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino. Riina remained defiant throughout his decades in prison, never showing remorse for his actions. His health, which was already poor, due to heart disease and kidney issues, worsened considerably in the weeks before his death. He was put into a medically induced coma. As he had turned 87 years old the day before, his family, including his wife and children, were given a special visit to say their last goodbyes just hours before he died. Riina's death signaled the end of an era for the Cosa Nostra, as he embodied the most violent and brutal phase of its recent history. A public funeral was prohibited by authorities because of the sensitive nature of his criminal history and the public anger over his deeds. He was interred in the family plot at the Corleone Cemetery in his hometown of Corleone, Sicily, in a private service. Arnold Rothstein, known as the Brain and the Big Bankroll, the legendary New York gambler, fixer, and organized crime figure, was shot on November 4, 1928, at the Park Central Hotel in Manhattan, New York City. He passed away from the gunshot wound 2 days later, on November 6, 1928, at Polyclinic Hospital. Rothstein was 46 years old. The shooting resulted from a high-stakes poker game that Rothstein had lost, allegedly owing a significant amount of money. Although he typically paid his debts, he thought the game was fixed and declined to pay. The man charged with shooting him, George "Hump" McManus, was later cleared, and the complete details of Rothstein's murder are still unknown and a subject of speculation. Rothstein was a key figure in American organized crime, credited with fixing the 1919 World Series and mentoring many future mob bosses, such as Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky. His death was a dramatic event that underscored the perilous and ruthless world of illegal gambling and the early stages of organized crime. Rothstein was laid to rest in the family plot at the Union Field Cemetery in Ridgewood, Queens, New York. Carlo Gambino, the shrewd and strategic leader of the Gambino crime family, passed away in his sleep from natural causes on October 15, 1976, at his residence in Massapequa, Long Island, New York. Gambino was 74 years old and had been suffering from heart disease for a number of years. His death was a significant departure from the violent ends of many of his predecessors and competitors. Gambino was renowned for his low-profile style and his capacity to stay out of the public eye, which earned him the moniker the Quiet Don. After planning the assassination of Albert Anastasia in 1957, he rose to the leadership of the family and solidified his authority over almost 2 decades. The Gambino family experienced relative stability and enormous profitability during his tenure. Gambino was able to avoid significant prison sentences despite numerous investigations and arrests throughout his career. For a mob boss, his ability to die peacefully in his own bed was regarded as the highest accomplishment, a sign of his power and his skill in navigating the perilous underworld. He was laid to rest in a private mausoleum at St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village, Queens, New York, among other notable Italian-American families, signifying his enduring impact on New York's criminal history. Meyer Lansky, the renowned mob's accountant and financial mastermind of the American mafia, passed away from lung cancer on January 15, 1983, at Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami Beach, Florida. At the time of his death, Lansky was 80 years old, making him one of the few high-ranking mobsters to die peacefully from natural causes. Throughout his extensive career, he was a close associate of Lucky Luciano and Benjamin "Bugsy" Siegel, and was instrumental in establishing the National Crime Syndicate and the Havana casino businesses. Lansky was rarely found guilty of serious offenses and served little time in prison, despite being thoroughly investigated by law enforcement agencies for decades, mainly due to his clever legal tactics and his ability to stay out of the limelight. He experienced declining health in his later years, especially with respiratory problems. His death signaled the end of an era for organized crime, as he was one of the last surviving figures from the Prohibition era who had helped create the modern mafia. Lansky was laid to rest in the Mount Nebo Kendall Memorial Gardens in Miami, Florida. His grave is marked by a simple headstone, a reflection of his often unassuming style despite his great power. Sam Giancana, the strong and unpredictable head of the Chicago outfit, was brutally murdered on June 19, 1975, in the basement of his house in Oak Park, Illinois. Giancana was shot 7 times in the head with a .22 caliber pistol while cooking sausages, a detail that became infamously linked to his death. He was 67 years old. His murder happened just days before he was supposed to testify before a Senate committee looking into alleged CIA plots to assassinate Fidel Castro, in which Giancana was rumored to have been a part. The identity of his killer and the particular group that ordered his death are still a matter of much speculation. Some theories claim that the Chicago outfit itself ordered the hit, afraid of what Giancana might tell the Senate committee or to stop him from taking back control of the family. Others point to outside groups. His death was a major event in the history of the Chicago mob, as it showed a change in power and a shift away from the high-profile, old-school bosses. Giancana was laid to rest in Mount Carmel Cemetery in Hillside, Illinois, the same cemetery as Al Capone, another famous figure of the Chicago outfit. Benjamin "Bugsy" Siegel, the charming and notoriously brutal Jewish-American mobster who was instrumental in the growth of Las Vegas, was savagely killed on June 20, 1947, at the Beverly Hills residence of his girlfriend, Virginia Hill. Siegel was shot numerous times with a .30 caliber carbine through a window, with 2 shots hitting his head, one of which dislodged his left eye. The National Crime Syndicate, specifically his former associates Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky, who were enraged by Siegel's huge cost overruns and suspected theft during the construction of the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, is widely thought to have ordered the assassination. The The Flamingo Project was losing money and the mob boss's patience had run out. Siegel was 41 years old when he passed away, a violent end that matched his reputation. His death served as a clear warning to anyone who dared to challenge the syndicate. Siegel was first buried in a non-denominational area of Hollywood Memorial Park Cemetery, which is now known as Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, California. A relatively plain headstone marks his grave. Vito Genovese, the formidable head of what became known as the Genovese crime family, passed away from a heart attack on February 14, 1969, while detained at the U.S. Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri. Genovese was serving a 15-year sentence for drug trafficking, a conviction he received in 1959 as part of a significant federal offensive against organized crime. Despite his imprisonment, he is said to have maintained considerable control over his crime family from behind bars, essentially managing the organization through trusted aides. His health had been getting worse for some time because of heart issues. His death at 71 years old marked the end of a long and brutal career that saw him climb to the top of the American mafia, often through violent methods, including the murder of rival mobsters. Genovese's death in prison was a definite victory for law enforcement, showing that even the most powerful crime bosses were not beyond the reach of the law. He was laid to rest in a mausoleum at St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village, Queens, New York, a lasting feature in the landscape
of mafia history.
Albert Anastasia, the ruthless head of what would become the Gambino crime family and the leader of Murder, Inc., was brutally murdered on October 25, 1957, in the barbershop of the Park Sheraton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan,
New York City. Anastasia, known as the Mad Hatter and the Lord High Executioner for his savage nature, was unwinding in a barber chair covered with a towel when two masked assassins burst in and started shooting.
He was shot at least 10 times, with bullets hitting him in the head, chest, and arms, killing him on the spot. His murder was the result of a power struggle within the mafia, mainly planned by Vito Genovese and Carlo Gambino, who wanted to oust Anastasia from power. The public and brazen way the killing was carried out, in broad daylight, highlighted the unchecked power and internal conflicts within organized crime at that time. Anastasia was 55 years old. His death paved the way for Carlo Gambino to become the family's undisputed leader. He was laid to rest in a large, elaborate mausoleum at the Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York, a final resting place that reflected the lavish and violent life he had led. Frank Lucas, the infamous American drug dealer who operated a highly lucrative heroin smuggling business in Harlem during the 1960s and 1970s, passed away from natural causes on May 30, 2019, at the age of 88. Lucas, whose life was famously portrayed in the movie American Gangster, developed the technique of smuggling heroin directly from Southeast Asia, avoiding the usual mafia middlemen. He was known for his extravagant lifestyle and his cruelty. Lucas was finally apprehended in 1975 and cooperated extensively with the government, giving testimony that resulted in numerous convictions of corrupt police officers and drug dealers. He was largely out of the drug business after serving several prison terms. In his later years, he had various health problems, including diabetes and a broken neck from a car accident. His death marked the end of a long and complicated life, moving from a notorious drug lord to a government informant and then a public figure. Frank Lucas was laid to rest in the Fairmount Cemetery in Newark, New Jersey, a quiet end for a man whose life was anything but. Tony Accardo, known as Joe Batters and Big Tuna, the longest-serving head of the Chicago outfit, passed away from natural causes on May 27, 1992, at the age of 86. Accardo had a remarkably long and prosperous career in organized crime, moving up from Al Capone's driver and bodyguard to eventually leading the outfit for decades. Unlike many of his predecessors and successors who had violent ends or served long prison sentences, Accardo skillfully navigated the risks of the underworld and mostly avoided major federal convictions, which earned him a reputation for being clever and careful. In his later years, he officially stepped down from day-to-day management, but continued to be a powerful and respected elder statesman consulted on important decisions. His death in his sleep at his home in Barrington, Illinois, was a peaceful end to a life that had covered almost the entire history of the modern American mafia. Accardo was laid to rest in a private mausoleum at Queen of Heaven Cemetery in Hillside, Illinois, not far from other notable figures of the Chicago outfit, a testament to his lasting legacy. Haji Mastan, one of Mumbai's most notable and powerful underworld figures, passed away from a heart attack on May 9, 1994, at the age of 68. Mastan, whose real name was Mastan Haider Mirza, started his career as a dock worker and became a prominent smuggler of gold, silver, and electronics in the 1950s and 1960s. Mastan cultivated the image of a kind-hearted don, known for his charitable work and his skill in settling disputes, unlike many other gangsters. He also got into politics and even produced movies. In his later years, he reportedly stepped back from active crime, concentrating more on social work and politics. His death was a natural one, a rare outcome for a person of his fame in the often violent Mumbai underworld. Despite his criminal history, he was widely respected by many, and his funeral was attended by a large number of people from all walks of life. Haji Mastan was laid to rest in the Khoja Shia Isna Ashari Jamaat Kabristan Cemetery in Marine Lines, Mumbai, India. His grave is a testament to his unique position as a criminal who also earned public respect. Dutch Schultz, the infamous New York City gangster who amassed his wealth through bootlegging and the numbers racket during Prohibition, was fatally shot on October 23, 1935, at the Palace Chop House in Newark, New Jersey. He passed away the next day, October 24, 1935, in a Newark hospital from peritonitis caused by his injuries. Schultz was 33 years old. The National Crime Syndicate, particularly Lucky Luciano and other crime bosses, ordered his assassination because Schultz had independently decided to kill prosecutor Thomas Dewey, a decision the syndicate feared would trigger massive federal action against all organized crime. Despite his fatal injuries, Schultz is said to have remained conscious for several hours, delivering a rambling, semi-conscious deathbed speech that was recorded by a police stenographer and later became famous. His death was a major event in the consolidation of power within the American mafia. Dutch Schultz was laid to rest in a relatively simple plot at the Gate of Heaven Cemetery in Hawthorne, New York. His grave is a silent reminder of a violent and bold life cut short by the very power structure he helped to build. Matteo Messina Denaro, the notorious last godfather of the Sicilian mafia, passed away from colon cancer on September 25, 2023, in a hospital in L'Aquila, Italy, at the age of 61. Denaro had been a fugitive for 30 years, successfully avoiding capture and becoming Italy's most wanted man before he was finally caught in January 2023 while getting treatment for his cancer in Palermo. His capture was a huge victory for Italian law enforcement. During his decades as a fugitive, he was found guilty in absentia of numerous murders, including the assassinations of anti-mafia judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, and for planning a series of bombings in the 1990s. His health quickly worsened after his arrest. He had surgery for his cancer and later fell into an irreversible coma. His death marked the definitive end of an era for the Sicilian mafia, representing the final chapter of the old-style, violent Cosa Nostra leadership. Because of the high-profile nature of his crimes, his funeral was a private event with few people, as a public ceremony was banned by authorities to keep it from becoming a gathering place for supporters. He was laid to rest in the local cemetery in his hometown of Campobello di Mazzara, Sicily. Leroy Nicky Barnes, known as Mr. Untouchable, was a notable African-American drug lord who ran a large heroin network in Harlem, New York City during the 1970s. He passed away on June 18, 2012, at the age of 79 from complications of cancer. His death, however, was not made public until 2019. This secrecy was because Barnes had become a federal informant in 1979 after being sentenced to life in prison. His cooperation resulted in the convictions of many of his former associates, and he joined the Witness Protection Program, living under a new identity. Barnes lived a life of anonymity for over 3 decades, completely hidden from the public eye and from those he had testified against. His death, when it was finally revealed, brought a surprising conclusion to the story of one of Harlem's most powerful drug kingpins. The details of his burial, including the exact location, are still unknown as part of his witness protection status, a permanent veil of secrecy that continued even after his death, making sure his final resting place remained truly untouchable. Enoch Nucky Johnson, the formidable political boss and racketeer who ruled Atlantic City, New Jersey during the Prohibition era, passed away from natural causes on December 9, 1968, at the age of 85. Johnson, famously portrayed in the series Boardwalk Empire, was a complex individual who expertly combined political power with organized crime, managing a huge empire of illegal liquor, gambling, and prostitution. He served a prison sentence for tax evasion from 1941 to 1945, which effectively brought his political and criminal rule to an end. He lived a much more peaceful life after his release, though he still had a lot of respect. Unlike many of his contemporaries who had violent ends, Johnson lived to a ripe old age, a testament to his cleverness and his ability to avoid direct conflict when he could. His death was a peaceful one at the Atlantic County Hospital in Pomona, New Jersey, due to complications from old age. He was a survivor of a brutal time, outliving many of his rivals and associates. Enoch Johnson was laid to rest in a family plot at the Egg Harbor City Cemetery in Egg Harbor City, New Jersey, a final resting place for a man who once controlled an entire city. Vincent "Mad Dog" Cole, the ruthless and unpredictable Irish-American gangster from New York City, was brutally shot down on February 8, 1932, at the age of 23. Cole was in a phone booth in a drugstore on West 23rd Street in Manhattan when a car stopped outside. Several gunmen came into the store and opened fire with submachine guns and shotguns, killing him on the spot. He was shot at least 15 times. The assassination was said to have been ordered by Dutch Schultz, with whom Cole had a violent rivalry, and possibly by Lucky Luciano and other syndicate members who saw Cole as a dangerous and uncontrollable person. Cole had gotten his infamous nickname because of his random violence, including the accidental killing of a 5-year-old boy during a kidnapping attempt, which turned both public and underworld opinion against him. His violent and early death was a clear message that even the most fearless and reckless gangsters could not break the unwritten rules of the underworld for long. Vincent Cole was laid to rest in St. Raymond Cemetery in the Bronx, New York. His grave is a stark reminder of the brutal and short lives often led by those who embraced extreme violence during the Prohibition era. Reginald "Reggie" Cray, the other half of the infamous Cray twins, passed away on October 1st, 2000 at the age of 66, from bladder cancer. Like his twin brother Ronnie, Reggie had been in prison for decades, having been locked up since 1969, also serving a life sentence for the murders of Jack the Hat McVitie and Frank Mitchell. Reggie was generally thought to be the more stable of the two brothers, but just as ruthless. In the months before his death, his health quickly declined because of aggressive cancer. He was let out of prison on compassionate grounds just weeks before he died, which allowed him to spend his last days as a free man, though he was very sick. His release was a highly publicized event and caused a lot of public debate. He died in a hotel suite in Norwich, England. His funeral, like Ronnie's, was a huge event, drawing big crowds and media attention, which further cemented the Cray twins' legendary status in British criminal history. Reggie Cray was buried next to his brother Ronnie and other family members in Chingford Mount Cemetery in London, England, bringing the two inseparable brothers together in their final resting place. Ronald "Ronnie" Cray, one half of the infamous Cray twins who controlled the organized crime scene in London's East End during the 1950s and 1960s, passed away on March 17, 1995, at the age of 61 from a heart attack. Ronnie had been in prison for decades, having been locked up since 1969, serving a life sentence for the murders of George Cornell and Jack the Hat McVitie. He was also diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia while in prison and spent a lot of time in Broadmoor Hospital, a high-security psychiatric facility. In the weeks before he died, Ronnie's health got worse because of heart problems. He was taken to Wexham Park Hospital in Slough, England, where he eventually passed away. His death, while in custody, marked the end of a life of violence, celebrity, and mental illness that both captivated and scared London. Despite his criminal past, his funeral was a large and public event, attended by thousands, showing the complex mix of fear and admiration he and his brother had. Ronnie Cray was laid to rest in the Cray family plot in Chingford Mount Cemetery in London, England. Charles Arthur "Pretty Boy" Floyd, the notorious American bank robber and Depression-era outlaw, was killed in a shootout with FBI agents and local law enforcement officers on October 22, 1934 at a farm in East Liverpool, Ohio. Floyd, who had been a fugitive for years and was public enemy number 1, was 29 years old. He was surrounded in a cornfield and is said to have tried to pull out his weapon but was shot multiple times by the officers. There has been some debate about his death, with some reports saying he was shot after giving up, while others say he resisted. Floyd was seen as a modern-day Robin Hood by some because of claims that he destroyed mortgage papers during bank robberies, though this is mostly unproven. His death, just months after the killings of John Dillinger and Bonnie and Clyde, marked the end of the era of the flamboyant Depression-era outlaws. His body was shown to the public, which drew large crowds. Charles Pretty Boy. Floyd was laid to rest in Atkins Cemetery near Atkins, Oklahoma, in a grave marked by a headstone that shows the lasting fascination with his outlaw legend. Manuel Noriega, the former de facto leader of Panama and a notorious drug dealer, passed away on May 29, 2017 at the age of 83 in a hospital in Panama City, Panama. Noriega had been in a coma since having surgery in March 2017 to remove a benign brain tumor. His health had been poor for some time, made worse by his old age and years of being in prison. Noriega's downfall happened when the United States invaded Panama in 1989, which led to his capture and later conviction in a U.S. court for drug trafficking, money laundering, and racketeering. He later served time in French and Panamanian prisons for other crimes. His death brought a quiet end to a life that had been full of international intrigue, drug cartels, military coups, and a dramatic fall from power. He was a unique person, a military dictator who was also a major player in the global drug trade. Manuel Noriega was laid to rest in a private ceremony in a cemetery in Panama City, Panama. The exact location of his grave is not widely known, which reflects the controversial nature of his legacy. Paul Castellano, the leader of the Gambino crime family after Carlo Gambino, was brutally murdered on December 16, 1985 at the age of 70,
outside the Sparks Steakhouse in Midtown Manhattan, New York City.
Castellano was showing up for a dinner meeting when he and his underboss, Thomas Bellotti, were attacked by a group of gunmen. Both men were shot multiple times and killed on the spot. The hit was ordered by John Gotti, who was then a rising captain in the Gambino family. Gotti thought Castellano was too out of touch, too focused on white-collar crimes, and not respected by the street crews. He also didn't like Castellano's perceived weakness and his strict rules, especially a ban on drug dealing. The public and brazen way Castellano's assassination was carried out, without the approval of the Mafia Commission, was a shocking violation of Mafia protocol and directly led to John Gotti's rise as the new boss. The event caused a period of instability within the Mafia. Paul Castellano was laid to rest in a large mausoleum at the Moravian Cemetery on Staten Island, New York, a stark final resting place for a powerful figure whose life ended in a violent power struggle. George Kelly Barnes, better known as Machine Gun Kelly, the notorious Prohibition-era gangster and kidnapper, passed away from a heart attack on July 18, 1954 at the age of 59, while locked up at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary in Kansas. Kelly, famous for his use of the Thompson submachine gun, was serving a life sentence for the 1933 kidnapping of Oklahoma City oil tycoon Charles F. Urschel. His arrest and conviction were big wins for the newly created FBI. Despite his scary nickname, many historians and law enforcement officials think that Kelly was more of a loudmouth and a show-off than a truly cold-blooded killer, with his wife, Catherine Kelly, being largely responsible for creating his fearsome public image. His health got worse in his later years in prison. His death from natural causes behind bars was a common end for many gangsters of that time, effectively taking them out of society. George Machine Gun Kelly was laid to rest in a family plot at the Cottondale Cemetery in Cottondale, Texas, a final, quiet resting place far from the dramatic shootouts and headline-making crimes of his youth. Jose Figueroa Agosto, the notorious Puerto Rican drug lord known as the Godfather or Junior Capsular, was murdered on May 7, 2012, at the age of 47 in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Agosto was driving his Mercedes-Benz SUV through a residential area when he was attacked by a group of assassins in another car.
He was shot multiple times and died on the spot.
His death marked the end of a long and complex criminal career that covered multiple countries, including Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and the United States. Agosto was one of the most wanted drug traffickers in the Caribbean, known for his ability to avoid capture for years, his use of plastic surgery to change his appearance, and his lavish lifestyle. He had previously escaped from a prison in Puerto Rico in 1999. After years as a fugitive, he was finally caught in 2010. However, he was out on parole when he was killed, a common cycle of capture, release, and ultimate violence in the drug world. Jose Figueroa Agosto was laid to rest in a private ceremony in Puerto Rico, though the exact location of his grave is not widely known because of security concerns and the desire to keep it from becoming a macabre shrine.